Radio BVM is so proud to welcome Shushma Datt, a local radio and television broadcaster, here to our studio. Welcome, Shushma.
Well, thank you, Camille.
So, Shushma, I wanted to start. You've had such a long career, but what brought you into the world of broadcasting?
It is a very interesting story. I was about 10 years old, and I must admit that I wasn't a very good student, so my parents did not have high hopes from me. So I liked mischief. I loved, pranking around. And there was a play that was going to be happening, and it was going to be recorded at a radio station. And I was lucky enough to get one line in that play. So I was very excited. And I practiced that line throughout the week, day in, day out. And when it came to my turn at the radio station, I was so mesmerized by all those big reel-to-reels which were recording the big microphones, because I was about 10 years old then, that I fumbled. And I was so disappointed in myself. And so the technician asked me to repeat my line 2-3 times, which I did. I was okay. And a week later, when the play came on the radio, my mistake wasn't there. Because I had a terrible time the whole week. My God, everybody's going to know that I made a mistake. And then I thought, what a magical world this is. You make mistakes and you can erase them. I want to be a part of this.
Thoroughly agree. Yes. That is magic. Oh my goodness. So that was your first taste of broadcasting at a very early age.
Very young age, yes.
Gosh. So when was your first paid job in the
Oh my
business?
God. It didn't happen until I was 20 years old. So I was in Africa. This was in Africa when we lived in Kenya. And I went to Kenya Broadcasting. So after that, I told my parents that I wanted to be a broadcaster. And my dad just looked at me and I said, okay, I don't think that's happening. So I said, okay. So I wasn't passing my 7th grade because not a good student. So my dad said to me, if you don't pass, I'm going to take you to India and you're going to be married. So that was it. I had to study really hard. So I passed senior Cambridge and our family moved to India from Kenya. And over there I got admission in a university, and I was interested in writing. So I always wrote. And I started doing my writing career there, and did my bachelor's in history at Delhi University when parents decided they wanted to move to England because we were like foreigners in India, which was weird because we're Indians, right? But born and brought up in East Africa, so we did not mesh with the people. When we went to England, I was about 19 at that time, 20. And we had to find a job because we were in a brand new country. My older brother and I both. My older brother went to university, and I said, I don't want to go to university. I've done my bachelor's. I will look for a job. So I thought, I'm an Indian. I'm in England, and there is Indian High Commission. I went to Indian High Commission, and I said, I would like to apply for a job. So they took my typing test, and I miserably failed. And the guy said, so why don't you practice a little bit and then come back after about a month and we'll see whether we can give you a job or not. Okay, I said, and right next door was the BBC's overseas service. So I entered there and took an application form, filled it in and gave it to them. Within a week, I get a letter from the BBC saying, come for an interview. And I was like flabbergasted. Oh my God, the BBC. So I went there, and in my application form, I had put my typing speeds, and I wrote all the languages I know, Hindi, English, Punjabi, Gujarati, about 6 languages. And then I wrote my typing speeds by mistake in the column of Hindi. And they were looking for a Hindi typist. And so the interview was quite weird. The woman is saying there is no standard keyboard, so which keyboard did you learn on? And I'm thinking she's maybe talking about electric and manual typewriters. So I told her what typewriter I had learnt it on, and she said, oh, I didn't know Royale made typewriters. She meant Hindi typewriters. And then she said, why don't you have a look at the typewriter? And I said, okay. when I looked at it, it was a Hindi typewriter. And I thought, that's why she said there is no standard keyboard. So I put a paper in there and I typed. I don't know what I typed. But I said to the HR person, I said, no, this is different. Oh, she said, how long will it take you to learn? Oh, 2 weeks, I said. And she said, you sure about that? I said, oh, yeah. But my future boss knew that, I was just, BSing my way through it. So the interview ended there, and they said, thank you so much for coming. And they told the Hindi department that, well, no, she doesn't know how to type, so I don't think we can hire her. So they were without a Hindi typist for 2 years. So one of the oldest guys over there said, does she know Hindi? I think she does. Why don't you get her back here? If she knows Hindi, she'll learn it. So within a week, I get another letter asking for a second interview. So I went there and they gave me a Hindi test, and my Hindi was very good. And I passed. And my boss told me that I know that you've never typed on a Hindi typewriter, but I'm willing to give you a chance because you're a bright young woman, he said. He said, and Mr. Pava likes you. And how long? I'm giving you 6 months to learn Hindi typing. And that guy, later on, Mr. Charles McClellan, became the DG of BBC. And that's how my career started with the BBC. And I started as a Hindi typist. And then my next boss, Mark Tully, was the one who pushed me into broadcasting. And he said, go ahead. You write beautifully. Why don't you write a short program? So I wrote a 5-minute program. And that went on air for the very first time in 1966.
Wow.
So that's how I started. That's a very long answer.
No, what an interesting story, though. All about that, putting your typing speed in the wrong column, but it turned out to be the right column after all.
It was.
Wow. And so there you got your start at the BBC.
At
My
the BBC,
goodness.
yes.
And so what kind of work did you do there?
Mainly as a typist, and then I had a 5-minute program in which I interviewed, and that was the one and the only music show that in that overseas service was allowed. And that was my show, which then became a 15-minute program. And I'm going to wow you even more by saying that I got to meet some of the best musicians of the time.
1966, you said. I'm thinking England. Oh, my goodness.
The Beatles.
Yes.
The Rolling Stones.
No.
Yeah, Mick Jagger. And I interviewed... For the Beatles, I interviewed George Harrison because he was in the 67, 68, he was learning to play sitar. And that was something that I liked very much. And I wanted to find out from him what was it that interested him in sitar. And so interviewing, he was such a shy guy. It was such a beautiful interview.
Oh, my goodness. Someone so shy but able to perform in front of thousands.
Amazing. But I never got to interview Paul or Ringo or John, but they were there pranking around, while I was interviewing George. And I also got an opportunity to meet with Mick Jagger, because he was the first image when we went to England. The very first television program, Top of the Pops, that I saw there, it was Mick Jagger singing, I Can Get No Satisfaction. So I thought, wow.
It was meant to be.
It was meant to be.
You arrived there in England, and yes, my goodness. And what was he like as an interviewer?
Oh, fantastic. We sat next to each other, and he gave a very nice interview. And now technology has changed so much that you can record everything on your iPhone. But in those days, you had to carry your UHER and record it on that, and then bring it back and dump it onto another tape, and then edit it, splice it. So I wish this era was there so that I could have saved all those interviews. But I got to meet some really interesting people like Jimi Hendrix, Cliff Richards, Petula Clark. These were the names.
All of the greats of the era.
Of that era.
Wow.
Interesting.
Oh, my goodness.
And I would do that, the music program for the BBC, only 15 minutes, once a week. And that was my claim to fame there.
Quite a claim to fame. My goodness. What an experience. Gee.
It was amazing.
Gee. And so you mentioned some of the challenges of technology in those days, though. So many things have changed, and you've actually brought a couple of microphones here. So these are some that you used around what time?
When I left England in '72, I knew that there was going to be a brand new radio station starting in Vancouver, because I'd gotten married and the guy I married lived here in Canada, in Vancouver. So I went ahead and bought one and took one. So one microphone is a AKG D30. It has a figure of 8. It also has a cardioid has omni recording, and I was also interested in technical work. So I became a studio manager. So I did a course it was called POA, Program Operations Assistant. And in that, you need to balance music. You need to balance, like you and I are talking, and Matt is balancing our voices. If I'm moving here or there, he's making sure that the audio is perfect. So that's what they teach you in that. And what sort of microphones are good for what. So I also had an opportunity of working while you were interning at CTV and places like that. I had to intern at Shepherd's Bush, and Top of the Pops was the program that I was interning at. And they showed us how to use microphones for vocals, instruments, and the ribbon mic, which I've brought here. It's a unique microphone, and it has a thin ribbon inside, and on the sides of it, it has a magnet. And when you speak, the ribbon vibrates. That's how the audio is caught and then transmitted through that.
An actual ribbon right inside ribbon. There.
Yes.
Gosh. Gee. And so you mentioned it was 1972 then that you came to Vancouver.
Canada, yes.
Yes. And so what was your first job out here?
I worked as an announcer for CJVB, which was a radio station that had just been licensed. It was an AM station and the first multilingual station in Vancouver. But because I was also a technical operator, I worked as an operator with CHQM and did their FM. And in those days, they also had a sideband frequency, which was called elevator music. And that's what you hear in those days, in the 70s, before you were born, in superstores. And the music came from CHQMs. And I would program that. And so it was a huge board in which we had to put some pins in, and that would trigger. There were 8 reel-to-reels. It would trigger one after another, and the music played continuously. And now we can do that on an iPad or
Right, and an iPod, iPhone, all of
iPod. Yes.
All of those.
Yes.
Gosh, hours worth now, but you had to plug them in.
Yes, and reel to reel. The year when I started broadcasting, we recorded everything on a reel to reel, and the speed of a reel to reel was 30 inches per second. 30 inches per second. Then we went down to 15 inches per second, because can you imagine the resonance being caught on that magnetic tape? Then we went down to your little cassettes, which recorded at 1.78. And now even cassettes are gone. And now we digitally record everything. So, my God, from huge reel-to-reel or a turntable, we've now gone to digital, which is like dots and specks.
Gosh, it's not so many years, but you've really seen the evolution of technology in radio over...
Certainly have.
A few decades.
Yes,
wow,
that's right.
Gee, and so what was it like when you were there sort of working on the technical side as well as on air as a female? Because I know that day and age was quite different in that sense as well.
When I first came here, I thought I'm from BBC, so CBC should be standing out there at the airport saying, hey, Sushma's here. We've got to hire her. That didn't happen. I went to CBC studios, and I also went to some other radio stations, and I shouldn't mention any names, but one of the stations said to me, you've got three things against you. Number one, you're a woman. Number two, you're a woman of color. And number three, your accent is very thick. So you'll never get a job in broadcasting. So forget it. So I said, okay, all right, I'll become a technical operator. And so one of the organizations said, well, people here work till they die, and I don't see anybody dying soon. So that job is out too. So I had to create a job for myself. You know, I had to start a company which would give me a job. You know, and that's how I started over here. Started my own radio station.
Oh my goodness. Gosh, and so which could you tell me a little bit about that first branch out on your own that you had to do?
That didn't happen until 1987, though.
Oh.
But I did radio with CJVB till 1978, and then I got into television. That was something else that really attracted me, and the community was growing rapidly, and there was nothing for them. So I went to Czech TV. On the island, and I said, I need to have some time to show Indian movies to my community. And they said, the only time we've got is 6 in the morning till 7:30, and that is on Saturday morning or Sunday morning, either of those two. And I said, okay, I'll take it. I'll take that. Indian films are 3 hours long. So we'd show half the movie one week and the other half the following week. And even today, when I meet young people your age or older to you, and they say to me, we used to wake up in the morning at 6 o'clock to watch that movie. And then I got into television, and in 1979, then Vancouver Cablevision got the Multicultural Channel, and I was the original producer on that channel, and we are still producing programming for them. And now it's gone from Vancouver Cablevision to Rogers Cable to now Shaw. And Shaw owns the Multicultural Channel, and we produce programming on that. And I also do a program called Women in Focus on Omni TV, which is a Rogers company, and that is my television side. There was a time when we were producing close to about 11 hours of programming per week. And we have a huge studio in Burnaby with all the lights and high ceilings and good sets, but we don't use that anymore.
Oh my goodness. But thinking of those early morning movies and how people still
That's
remember
right.
those. What is that like to know that you were the one really who started reaching out to the ethnic community that had no representation on television at the time?
Camille, I think I never thought of it like that. I thought, here is a community that is not serviced, and I have maybe the skills to do that, and I will do it. This is my job. So I've always considered whatever I'm doing as a job that I can do and will do. I am way past my senior citizen years. I do get a pension, but I'll never stop working because I can still work. I still do a show. I have a talk show every day from 2 to 3 on RJ 1200 and Radio Jhim. And I will continue doing that. But the Jhim journey is another interesting journey. If you have time, I'll tell you that.
Please do, yes.
So after I finished my radio, I went into television. And then the community went through a turmoil period in 84 where there was a lot of uncertainty within the community as to what was happening in Punjab. And my ancestors come from Punjab. So I listened to the news and I thought the Indian government was doing their own propaganda like every other government does. And the terrorists had their own propaganda. So the people who lived in Vancouver and the Lower Mainland did not know what was happening in their homeland. They did not really know what was going on. Now, with my background with the BBC, I knew that one of my colleagues had moved to India and was living in Delhi. So I contacted them and I said, if I were to start a station, would you be in a position to give us a daily news bulletin from Delhi? And they said, yes, no problem. So I went and I remembered that at CHQM, I used to put those pins. and that was elevator music. And so I learned how that music worked. It was on a subcarrier frequency. So AM and FM are two different kinds of frequencies, right? AM is usually nowadays used for talk, but FM is a music frequency. So FM has many subcarrier frequencies that it carries with it, which is nowadays used for data. So one of that frequency was being used by CHQM to do the elevator music. So I had known of that, so I went and talked to JR Country that had just started their broadcast, and I said, could I take one of your frequencies and broadcast an Indian program on that? And they said yes, and we will have to talk to the commission. And so an application was put into the commission. The commission didn't have any interventions, and they said yes. And in 1987, with 7 radios, because you had to get a radio to listen to the frequency, with 7 listeners, I started Jhim on November 1st, 1987. And so nobody's listening. You have to buy a radio to listen to it. What sort of a technology is that? People were very concerned about that. Maybe she's going to be over and done with within a year, and she wants me to spend $130 to buy a radio, and then she's out of business. I'm out of $130. So it was a tough sort of uphill battle. But I had my television programming going on, feeding the radio. And then elections took place in India in 1988, 89, early 89. And so I lined up my colleagues from the BBC, from the Voice of America in Delhi, and we did on the hour, every hour news bulletins from India as to what's happening in the elections throughout India. That was something that caught on like wildfire. And we had people wanting to buy the radios.
Right, when you're offering that kind of election coverage.
Yes.
Way out here. Gee.
So that, I think, was the turning point for Jhim. And today we have over 50,000 radios out in the market. Jhim is heard from Vancouver all the way to Ontario, through cable. And then in 2005, we got the AM license for RJ 1200. And we started that for the younger generation and left Jhim for slightly older generation. So we do all sorts of religious programming and hymns and old songs. But on RJ 1200, it's top 40. And I think it's the first station of its kind to do top 40 South Asian music in Canada.
Wow.
Let's just take that.
Yes, absolutely. No, well, I've seen the promotions crew out and about, and it sure sounds great. The beat of it. It's
very
fun.
Energetic.
Yes,
that's right. And so all our employees on RJ 1200 are like you, BCIT trained broadcasters.
Wow. So you're really able to cater to quite a wide array of people right through to Ontario.
That's right.
My goodness.
That's right. And we do get, because of the technology, Camille, everything is, you are on the World Wide Web, so everybody can hear you. We have different kinds of programs, and one program is done by a young woman who does a feng shui program. And after she does her program once a month on a Friday, she usually calls me and tells me that throughout Canada is lit up, and some parts of the world are lit up too, because people over there are listening to it on the website.
Oh my goodness. So you're reaching out to folks all around the world even.
I'd like to believe that.
What is that like, though, to start from being a 10-year-old messing up your line on the radio to now having your own radio stations, your television programming that you do? What is it like to have accomplished all of that?
I don't think about that, but it is a very humbling experience. It is a very what can I say? I think I always believe that whatever you want, you dream about it, and you have the power to realize it. And so whatever I've wanted in life, I've dreamt about it, and it has come true. So I am a very content person right now. Been there, done that, So it is very nice. And what interests me is the technology, how technology is changing, right? I think one day we will just have a little chip in our head, and we'll just press a button and we'll listen to all the music that we want. There won't be a need for anything else.
Maybe not so far in the future.
Maybe not
the way things change so quickly.
Like in the last 40 years, from a reel to a digital recording, that's amazing. I mean, we've come that far. So sky's the limit as to what we can do.
And what about for you? What are your new dreams for the future?
I'm very passionate about the South Asian women. I am very passionate about the seniors in our community. There is a lot of neglect and not deliberate, but, neglect of older people. Older people are brought here and they look after the kids. So they are unpaid babysitters, which bothers the hell out of me. I think that is something that younger generation needs to learn, that it's not kosher. You cannot do that. And I think the government has also looked at it and has changed the laws. Although the current government says that they believe in family reunification, yet for the past 2 years, sponsorship of your parents and grandparents has been restricted. And I understand that. And when I was talking to the minister, Jason Kenney, about the immigration and the changes in the laws, I understand where they're coming from. Although we are a huge country, we have only 35 million people living here. And my age group, the baby boomers, are growing older. And you guys are not having as many children as we used to. In our good old days, 6 kids or 8 kids. You guys just have one and then you're tired. You don't want to have more than 2 kids. So who's going to feed you guys? Or who's going to feed us when we are at this age? So the government is looking at it and saying, we want to have more younger people coming into the country. So the immigration is looking at younger people coming in, and the seniors who want to come in and be with their families. The government is changing the laws. So you can come here, visit them, but go back home. So that's what the government has done for the past 2 years with super visas. They are going to open up the immigration and reunification as of next year. But the laws will change, the regulations will change. Instead of 10 years, so if I wanted my mother to come here and live with me, I was responsible for her for 10 years. She could not go on welfare or get money from the government. I was responsible for her. Now it'll be 20 years. And if you have income coming from elsewhere, that will be counted. So those are some of the things Canada has to do because of its low birth rate. But I understand that when seniors were brought here, the kids who grow up here, because our lifestyle is different. In India, the lifestyle is, you listen to your mom and dad. They have the final say. Over here, it is you're an independent person. So you have your own say. So kids learn that. And so they're very abrasive to the grandparents, which I don't appreciate very much, right? So I talk about that on our talk shows. And the other one is young women in the community that were in the 80s and 90s. There were a lot of deaths within my community where young women were brought here and then they were murdered. And that was something that we picked up as a cause. A cause that is very close to my heart is, when you're pregnant and you want to find out what is the sex of your child. So feticide was another issue that concerned me a lot, and we talked about that. So I think those are some of the things that you can do through media. You can bring in education to the community, awareness to the community, not education. The community is educated, but awareness to the community, and tell them that there is help for you. You're not living, in East Africa or India or Pakistan or Fiji or, South America. You can get help here because now this is your country. And I also believe that once you leave your homeland, you have to be honest to the country that you have chosen. So if your home is here, then you have to be honest to this place. Then you have to do whatever this place requires of you, because this place is giving you so much. So in return, it's your responsibility to return it back to this country, right?
Yes. Amazing that you're able to have that voice that reaches out to people
in our community.
In your community.
That's
yes. Right. This has been just fantastic, Shushma, hearing about your story and the very important issues that you're bringing up today. And so is there anything else that you'd like to share with me before we have to go?
We have to go. I wanted to say that although I believe in the spirit of multiculturalism, I think the spirit that all of us have to adopt is intercultural. We have to learn about other cultures. And so not that my culture should be adopted by you or learned by you, but we should be aware of each other's cultures, and we should be able to adopt the good stuff that each and every culture has to give to one another. In my culture, respect of elders is amazing. Even today, big singers who were, small singers about 30, 40 years ago now are big names. When they see me, they come and touch my feet, which is a sign of respect. And we don't see that happening anymore, right? So those are some of the things that we have to learn from one another. Respect. Respect is very important. And I think if we can look at each and every community and look at the good stuff in each community and adopt that, my God, we would be an amazing country we are the envy of the world anyway. We will be more envy of the world.
We certainly will be. The more good stuff that we can all share.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Shushma Datt, longtime broadcaster and our very special guest on Radio BVM.